of the adults going absolutely insane. You also get to travel with Kenny this time, and I love his little moment of commiseration with you.
I'm glad you're with us, new kid. It's been tough being the only one on the team with real superpowers. While all the other kids are playing and working on their franchise plans, I'm stuck defending the city against evil.
But let me tell you, the police station mission is insane. You uncover the fact that they've been falsely arresting the black citizens of South Park, you free them, and then you discover why. They're literally feeding them to a Lovecraftian monster.
Oh, I see. I guess because cops feed African Americans to an elder god, they're racist.
I thought this was a very funny piece of commentary about the police and Lovecraft.
But I suppose H.P. Lovecraft was a racist too. Oh, was he really? Like how racist? Really?
And this is one of the craziest and most difficult boss battles in the game too. You have to fight these police cult members while also avoiding the monster tentacles. Ideally, you knock the enemies into the monster, but it's not easy. It's a really creative boss battle mechanic. This next event really starts to send the game into the home stretch. There's a really great reveal that this entire time, Timmy has secretly been working on something to try and help all of the kids.
Oh my god, he's figured it out. It was Dr. Timothy's passion. He worked tirelessly on it.
A franchise plan that involved everyone. Each hero got their own movie and TV series.
I love this scene, seeing the kids reconnect and reform their alliance for the greater good.
If we proved anything tonight, it's that we are the best when we are all together.
But what really makes it work is the Cartman of it all, because we know Cartman is Mitch Connor, and that every single string has been pulled by him. But this was the one thing he didn't expect, something that can really mess up all of his plans, and so he starts to show his true colors.
But we're calling it Freedom Pals?
Freedom Pals.
And so, like, Timmy is sort of the leader of Freedom Pals?
He pretends to be in on it, of course, but the next day is when every single piece of his plan starts to come together. You wake up to find your house covered in blood, your parents kidnapped, and a report playing on the TV about the events that transpired at the police station. Now, with the town in absolute chaos, Mitch Connor is running for mayor.
The citizens of South Park deserve to feel safe. Safe from vigilantes who go around farting on people's heads.
You have to track down Cartman, who of course refuses to admit he's Mitch Connor. You basically torture him to get him to talk, revealing he wants to genetically alter the cats, sending them to Dr. Mephisto's genetics lab. And I loved this section of the game. For one, we haven't really been to Mephisto's lab since 200 and 201, and now after all this time, they gave the place a really cool facelift. Mephisto's just got an entire team of geneticists working around the clock to give all kinds of animals so many asses.
Now we've been able to give more asses to pigs, horses, everything you can imagine. Yes, little boy.
How does that help?
Oh, you're one of the cynics, huh?
I love that they took this classic South Park location and gave it a perfect video game upgrade, because let me tell you, the monsters and battles you face here are wild. It's a really cool location, and it pays tributes to the series' roots. And this is where you learn Mitch's master plan.
Escalate crime in the city, blame crime on mayor, run for mayor, get tons of followers, clone new kid into genetic mutant, win election, make everyday Christmas.
I loved how all of these disparate story points tied together. It explains all of the police, crime family, and cat urine stuff, what's been going on with the mayoral election, how the new kid and his parents tie into all of this. Speaking of, Mitch kidnapped them to make that genetic clone, and in an incredibly fucked up sequence, you're forced to decide which of your parents lives and dies in order to proceed forward.
The computer is waiting for a DNA sample from your mother. Quick!
The only way out of here is to kill Daddy.
Yeah. Really dark stuff. The final stretch of the game is filled with great plot twists and incredible boss fights. You have to fight a mutated clone of Kyle's cousin Kyle, an incredibly difficult fight, but the new kid's time farts during this battle end up launching all of them forward an entire week, meaning the election is already over and that Mitch won. Luckily, Morgan Freeman helps you unlock your most powerful time fart ability, so they can go back in time to stop Mitch from becoming mayor.
This is the 7-layer quesarito chipotle beefy nacho supreme. The last time someone tried it, they farted so bad it created a wormhole that made time travel possible.
I love that the entire final sequence is propelled by time travel. For one, it's just a fun mechanic, but also some of the greatest video games of all time have focused heavily on time travel as a mechanic. But this stretch cements this as a truly outstanding sequel. First, you fart the entire team forward in time instead of backwards, being forced to come face to face with Mitch Connor's Every Day is Christmas future. But this gives you the opportunity to fight the woodland Christmas critters with Santa Claus on your team. Now, I know the Christmas critters aren't supposed to be real in South Park, but this is Cartman's Christmas future, so let's give it a pass. And what a great way to implement Santa, too.
Merry Christmas, everybody!
And while I loved that sequence, I think the next is conceptually the coolest part of the entire game. It's what cements Fractured But Whole is not just a great South Park game, but a perfect sequel. You fart everyone so far back in time, it takes you to the beginning of the game. Literally the opening scene, when the kids are still playing Stick of Truth, which leads to this hilarious confrontation between the superheroes and the fantasy personas from the previous game.
This isn't a trick, it's me, Frank. You, dude. I'm Craig.
And so you get to do an entire fight, Fractured But Whole versus Stick of Truth, and it feels like such a beautiful celebration of both of these video games. This battle cycles in and out your entire squad of heroes from the entire game, giving them all time to shine, while the fantasy kids also cycle in and out, which gives you an opportunity to see all of their powers and abilities fully realized in the new tactical battle system. It's a tiny bit disappointing that you don't see Cartman, Kenny, or Stan's Stick of Truth personas in the fight, but the lineup of Kyle, Butters, Craig, and Clyde and your past self makes for a really fun fight. After this fight, which to me is one of the absolute highlights of the game, they still have to wrap up the story, and there are two major plot points still in play. The kids confront Cartman, who is about to kick off the events of the entire game.
Show us your fucking left hand! Hello, Freedom Pass. Time travel. Ain't it a bitch?
Connor punches you, forcing a time travel fart that sends you back to your traumatic origin story, and we finally get some answers about the new kid, and it is very silly in the best way. You manage to change history and stop yourself from seeing your parents do it, at which point they tell you the secrets about themselves and your character. Both of them have some kind of social media superpower where they gain an unfathomable number of followers even without trying. They met when they were being studied by the government and fell in love, eventually escaping and giving birth to you.
You received over 10 million followers the minute you were born.
On top of that, you find out your mom has been putting medicine in your food to curb the social media abilities, and that medicine
Just gave you really powerful and really smelly farts.
So after we found out that the new kid's abilities in the last game were social media based, we get full-on answers in this game to not only where they came from, but also how they're connected to his unbelievable farting powers. I don't know, I thought this was all a very funny explanation, and I love that they chose to continue building story around these abilities in the sequel. Hell, they even utilized them in the mobile game South Park Phone Destroyer, another game starring the new kid. Would y'all be interested in a video dedicated to the new kid himself? Sounds like it might be a fun challenge. Anyways, after you get some closure from your parents, who both decide to stop abusing weed and wine, you manage to fart yourself to the proper time period, Mitch Connor's inauguration day, setting the stage for the final story battle. And I love that they put Kyle and Cartman at the center of this conflict, making it feel like a real culmination of the Mitch Connor saga.
Then how do you explain this, Cal? That's not funny, Cal.
I'm not doing it.
Kyle completely turning the tables on Cartman, trolling him by pretending his hand is Mitch Connor, is such a funny idea, especially since none of the other kids seem to have any clue if any of this is real or not, leading to the very fun final battle.
Well, Freedom Pass, who do you attack? Me or the king?
This battle has all kinds of crazy rules. If Mitch/Kyle gets hit, it hurts Cartman, and then you eventually have to beat both Mitch Connors, leading to the hilarious final scene.
1, 2, 3.
I was just f***ing with you.
Haha, gotcha.
Ow!
As Mitch tries to get sworn in, the kids all jump in and reveal his scheme, using a selfie you took with his evil plan back at the genetics lab. There's this weird final sequence where Mitch talks to his mom for closure about his own past. It's all very silly, and it ends the game on a very funny note.
Well, thank God that guy isn't gonna be mayor.
Come on, everybody. Let's go get clean drugs and alcohol from the next town over.
Man, I love how these games end with the classic South Park credits. It's funny every single time. While I'm a huge fan of the Stick of Truth ending twist, as they fittingly force you to kill Kenny as a fun nod to the show's history, making Cartman the real antagonist of this game makes so much story sense. He's always been the villain of these superhero stories in the show, and the show also always has him in the most antagonistic roles. But the way all of these stories come together in such a massive and ridiculous fashion is such a fun escalation from the story in Stick of Truth, which admittedly did have some really big and fun stuff towards the end, but this one just felt bigger and more intricately intertwined all the way through. Not to mention the battles just create for a much more difficult and strategic gameplay experience. In fact, I'm not sure I would have gotten through all of these final battles without a particularly powerful optional time fart ability. You may have seen me use it in some of the battle footage. If you finish a couple of optional side quests and get Miss Cartman's double stuffed brownies, as well as a bucket of memberberry juice from the farm, you can combine that into a special chocolate memberito. By eating this, it gives you a fart that allows you to summon your past self into battle for 4 turns, basically just giving you an additional clone of your own character to help fight. It is unbelievably helpful in some of these later fights. But there's actually a bit more to talk about, because unlike Stick of Truth, Fractured But Whole actually had proper story DLC, which I did not play until I wrapped up the main story. But if I'm being honest, I think you should consider playing the DLC before you finish the main quests. For one, the big finale to the main story just feels like a bigger and better ending. And two, you can gain access to new classes and team members in Henrietta and Mintberry Crunch that would be super helpful in the main story. But the story DLCs for this game are both great. The first, From Dusk Till Casa Bonita, brings you to Casa Bonita itself to help Kenny save his sister Karen from a vamp kid birthday party. Casa Bonita itself is a really fun place to explore. They jammed surprisingly large locations into these DLCs. This also gives a very funny focus on Mr. Adams, the caseworker for Child Protective Services, who is fitting